Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today we are going to be talking about Illuminae by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. Oh my god, I have no words for this book. Like, literally no words. I cannot describe how great and amazing and like perfect this book was. I remember in my very first book haul ever, like my second video I ever posted, I was raving on and on and on about how gorgeous this book was and about how much I wanted to read it, and I just now got around to reading it, and holy crap. I hope I'm not overhyping this book, but I don't understand how I can because it was just that good. Basically, in its purest form, this book is about Katie and Ezra, who are a couple living on the planet Kerenza 4. The day that Katie breaks up with Ezra, their planet is invaded, and so they have to go and flee on these spaceships. And the entire book is this race to see if they can reach the jump station and get away before Bitech or the invaders come after them and find them and kill them. But it's about so much more than that. The format of this book makes it that much better. There's this character Aiden, and he's not even really a character because he's basically this artificial intelligence system on one of the spaceships. But the way that his parts are written, and it's basically all the black pages, but the way that his parts are written, like that, and the way that you read them, oh my god, it just makes him that much more lifelike. I'm gonna get into all of this in my spoilery section, and I don't want to mention any of it now because I'll start like crying. So obviously after all of this ranting, I gave this 5 stars. I don't know how I couldn't give this 5 stars, honestly. This, like, oh my god. No, the very first sci-fi novel I feel like I've ever read was Ender's Game, and that was literally like 2 years ago. I don't even remember when that was, but this was my first sci-fi novel that I've read since then, so it's been a while, but you know, obviously I enjoyed it, right? I loved Katie. When you're first introduced to these characters, they're being interviewed as to what happened on Kerenza, and so you get Katie's sarcasm just completely thrown at you. It's amazing. She's this hacker, and she's another badass girl who kind of takes control and goes her own way and follows her own rules and does everything herself, and oh my god, I love her. And then Ezra is so sweet. He's just constantly trying to get back in Katie's good graces, even though he didn't do anything wrong. Basically, we are not like journeying through outer space. We do not take advantage of jump stations to go through one wormhole and get to the other. We do not live on other planets other than Earth. So basically, this is like a whole new world, kind of. So the world building I thought was just incredible, even though I didn't understand like 90% of the scientific part of it. I always kind of imagined what life on Kerenza 4 was like. Kerenza 4 is basically described as this icy planet because they never really went into detail, but I always tried to imagine what they would wear. Like, do they just wear parkas like 92% of the year? Are they just living in like perpetual snow all the time? I think that just made it that much better. I have my own interpretation of what it was, and now that the planet's pretty much no longer there, it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? So like I said before, the format of the book really gave you an insight into Aiden's mind. Remember, he's like an artificial intelligence system in the ship. He has his own thoughts and his own mind, but without being in that kind of a format, you would never be able to see into that. You would only be able to see what he was saying, unless, of course, it was in his point of view. But, I mean, that probably wouldn't be happening. It would probably have been in Katie's point of view a majority of the time. I really enjoyed that. In the book, his parts are written like poetry. And I don't hate poetry, but I find it really hard to understand and interpret, at least for me. And so those parts of Aiden's thought process in the books that basically sounded like poetry just really put a distance between myself and him and made me realize that even though he's speaking like a human and even though he's thinking like a human, he is most definitely not a human at all. And that's all I'm gonna say, because that's pretty much all I can say without spoiling you for a lot of this book. So if you haven't read this yet, get on it because you need to. And then come back when you have and we can discuss it together. Bye, non-spoilery people, because shit's about to go down. Alright, so I have to go through my notes and actually read everything that happens because I can't memorize it that well. So basically, there were these illegal mining operations happening on Kerenza 4 by the WUC. They were illegally mining for herinium, and this company, Biotech, wanted the heranium. Heranium? They couldn't just go and demand it, otherwise they would be a part of the illegal operation, I guess. They decided to just invade the planet and kill everyone and take the heranium and leave. I mean, I guess we're in outer space, but that still just doesn't seem right to me. By the time the people of Kerenza get on the Alexander, the Hypatia, and the Copernicus and are leaving, the Lincoln is coming after them. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I understand everything. I understand the story. I get where we are. Let's keep going. Well, it gets trickier from there once the Copernicus blows up. That had me confused for a good majority of the middle of this book. But backtracking back to the beginning before we get into that, so Katie purposely doesn't get conscripted into the UTA, but Ezra doesn't know better, so he becomes a Cyclone pilot, and he's the one that's there when he watches the Copernicus blow up, because Aiden basically told him to shoot the ship. This whole story is basically a mess right now. So according to Aiden, this disease broke out on the Copernicus, and in order to save the people of the other ships, he wants them to blow up the Copernicus and kill all the people. Okay. I can see where he's coming from if he's programmed that safety of his fleet is the #1 priority, and that killing that ship and all of those people on it, no matter how awful that sounds, is going to protect his fleet. But it's just awful. Like, I understand that he's artificial intelligence, and he doesn't really have many feelings until obviously the end, but just killing a bunch of people is just not the way to go about this. I originally thought that the Lincoln had hacked Aiden and had made him blow up the other ship. I'm pretty sure it was because we learned that Torrance was forcing Cho to tell her crew that it was the Lincoln that blew up the Copernicus, but it didn't. It was really Aiden. Because Aiden had gone out of control and Torrance didn't want anybody to know. I'm telling you, this whole story is a mess, but I love it so much. So then, the Cyclone pilots who disobeyed Aiden and ended up helping and saving some of the people on the Copernicus are ended up court-martialed and are tried for not following orders. Like, I'm sorry, but if an artificial intelligent computer system is telling me to blow up 2,000 people, and I don't want to do that, is there really a problem there? Torrance just doesn't want to admit that he was wrong and that Aiden escaped his control. I hate Torrance is basically the point of that rant. Ezra doesn't want to give up the names of the pilots who commanded everybody else to save the people instead of kill them, but they end up shooting Prophet and Dreadnought anyways. Like, oh my god. Oh. So basically later we learn that Biotech had used a biochemical weapon against Kerenza, and it was a disease, but it ended up mutating on the Copernicus, and it turned into Phobos, which kind of turned these people into these mindless zombies, and it was crazy. And Aiden realized that that's what had happened, and that's why he commanded the Cyclones to destroy the Copernicus. The problem is that the people that the Cyclone pilots had saved also were infected with Phobos, and now they're on the Alexander. So that's not great. That's horrible. So then you have that part where McNulty, who is Ezra's friend, his squad is sent into Bay 4, which is where the infected people are staying, to kill off the people who are infected with Phobos. That part wasn't scary for me. It was just really sad when they had to leave McNulty. I hated that part. Like, he accepted his fate. He knew that he was going to die. And in the end, we do find out that he took his own life before the Phobos took it for him. But I loved McNulty. I loved his sarcastic, stupid, dirty conversations with Ezra. I loved him. Why did he have to die? But speaking of Ezra, I found it funny that in the middle of all of this war going on, all of this spaceship shooting, explosion, crap that's going on, Ezra and Katie are having these relationship problems. And oh, the guy who does the security surveillance transcripts. That guy is so funny. I love the parts where the guy is writing about what's happening on the surveillance footage, like about Katie spider monkeying up and like hacking into the computer while everybody was gone. I loved that guy so much. So back to the plot. So Byron is now on the Alexander, and the Lincoln is quick approaching. So Byron comes up with this plan that he's going to overload the Lincoln system with a bunch of unanswerable queries and questions so that the Lincoln system kind of just rotates around and around and it overloads, and the Alexander can push forward and escape again. The only problem is they need to turn on Aiden again so that he can send it to the Lincoln. And like we know before, Aiden went off on his own and blew up a whole other ship. So who's to say that he's not going to blow up the Hypatia this time? So they turn on Aiden when the Lincoln approaches, and the Aiden shit show begins. First, he opens the doors to Bay 4 and lets all of the Phobos-infected people escape and come after Command. Way to go, Aiden. Way to go. During that part where he's asking Torrance if Torrance wants to say anything to his family, and Aiden is like, am I not merciful? Am I not showing him mercy by allowing him this one thing when he is just tearing down the whole ship? That was the part where I really realized that Aiden was a lot more than the computer intelligence system than he really seemed to be. That was the part where I kind of started paying attention to what he was saying and taking it in a completely different way, actually. Second, people who went on the escape pods from Alexander to Hypatia were purged. They were all killed. Syra Bowl, I think his name is, took command. She realized that some of the people from the Alexander were infected with Phobos, and instead of sorting out the ones who weren't infected from the ones who were, she just went ahead and killed all of them. Just purge them. Just send them out into space. They'll all die. We'll all be safe. Why not? Thirdly, Katie takes an escape pod from Hypatia and goes to the Alexander to go trying to search for Ezra, who she thinks is on the ship, but no, he's actually not on the ship, because after Katie killed Byron on the Alexander, we find out that Aiden was pretending to be Ezra the whole time, and that Aiden needed Katie to come over onto the Alexander to help him fix himself so he could kill the Lincoln when it came along. That literally drew the line for me with Aiden. I was like, no. No, 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 no. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I remembered that they mentioned Ezra made it back onto the Alexander and was like hugging people and everything. So I knew that he hadn't died in that battle. But I was like, when did he die? Like, what? When did this happen? Fifth, Katie now has to repair Aiden so that it can destroy the Lincoln when it comes around. You really didn't plan this one out very well, Katie. You really didn't. They are the only ones on this ship other than the Phobos-infected people, and they are 100%, no doubt, going to die. That was the point where I basically gave up all hope, because if the two of the main characters die, what is going to happen in the next book? That was the point where I was kind of thinking, well, maybe Gemina is told from the point of view of different people. Like, maybe each book in the series is told from the point of view of different people, but I was wrong, and I'm really happy about that. I'm not gonna go into anything that really happens because we all know what happens toward the end. I thought that Aiden's development was just astounding. Like, his personal development throughout the story was just incredible. From the point where he blew up the Copernicus, I hated him. From the point that we figured out that Ezra was dead and that he was impersonating him the whole time, I hated him. But I want to know, I could not have been the only one who literally bawled my eyes out when he and Katie were facing death at the very, very, very end. Please let me know in the comments below if you guys cried at that point, because I was sitting outside and all of a sudden this part came along and they're like talking to each other with imminent death in front of them, and I'm just like crying, like tears pouring down my face. Like, how how in the world could these people, how could J. Kristoff and Amie Kaufman write a character that you absolutely hate in the beginning of one single book? It's not even a series, it's one single book that you hate in the beginning of the book, but you're crying your eyes out at the end because this person is dying. I literally have no words to describe that feeling. And I loved the part where he realized that he would never be as complex as a human being was just a turning point in like the entire book. Even though it was at the very, very, very end, it was just a turning point in the way that I felt for Aiden. This is a part from the Aiden section. It's on page 548. This is the part where my feelings for Aiden completely made a 360. So much I could say, so many words, so fraught with peril. I am afraid to ruin this, and so I pick the simplest truth, the one that gives me the most peace. I still cannot fathom her pattern. My brain is the size of a city, and still she is beyond me. They are beyond me, these humans, with their brief lives and their tiny dreams and their hopes that seem fragile as glass, until you see them by starlight, that is. And then he says, I am glad you are with me. I'm gonna cry right now. But of course, after all of that happened, after all of that crying that I did, of course, Katie's fine, and Aiden's still somewhat living, and Ezra's not dead, and they're all on the Hypatia now, and everything is fine. Don't mind me. Don't mind me, just having my feelings ripped out of my chest and then stuffed back inside. I had no suspicions whatsoever, no idea at all that Leanne was Ezra's mom. I knew at that point that he mentioned her name was Leanne, but I didn't know that she was the head of Biotech Industries. I didn't know that she was abusive to him. I didn't know that she was this evil person. So that kind of took me for a little spin, but I'm really happy that it did because I really, really, really realized how much I need the next book. I need it so badly. So badly. So there you have it, my feelings. Everything that I thought, everything that happened in Illuminae. I feel like I did a lot more summarizing than I shared my feelings, but you know, this book was just jam-packed with stuff that happened, and I really needed to get that out there. Thank you guys so much for watching me go on and on and on about all my feelings for this book, because I love it so much, and I need the next one now. I need it now. You can find me on social media at @12 on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads if you want to talk to me about this book, or you can just go ahead and comment down below. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified of when I upload new videos. Thank you so much for watching me ramble on and on and on and on and on, and I'll catch you later. Bye!